Hello and welcome back to Most Wanted Music. And as I was announcing to you a little bit before, we have now a nice session, Record Companies in 2020 and Beyond, together with Ulf Zick from Universal Music International, the managing director of Universal Music International. Ulf, I see you. Hello. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you really well.
I can hear you wonderful. This is wonderful. You know, it is a challenge here with the tech, and we do our best, and very often we can see we depend on the internet. So the internet connection with you is wonderful, and I'm so glad to have you here to start this session, Record Companies in 2020 and Beyond. I'm actually happy that we have this session in English, because record company or record label sounds a little bit old-fashioned, but good, because music without recording doesn't work, especially these days. Well, you know, this is wonderful, right? Whereas Plattenfirma, okay, well, in German, you know, we have also Platten. It's nice because of vinyl records, but anyway, they have been doing quite well these last days. So we do this in English, and Ulf, actually, do you speak French?
Oui, un peu.
Un peu, okay. Because, you know, we have a very nice shortening for musique in French, and it's Zick, just like your name. So I think it is very, very nice. And it's also a lot of music in your name and in your career. It started with your own alternative American country indie record company back then, continued with guitar sounds by Gibson, and then a short jump to the techie side at Apogee Electronics, an American manufacturer of digital audio interfaces and production software. And then it all merged together into a digital platform called Spotify, where you serve the director, artists, and management. So what made you decide to join Universal Music International as managing director?
Well, you know, truthfully, I like a challenge, you know. I know this sounds a bit weird, but I kind of like to come from a place where you feel you can really make a difference. And every time I made a change in my life so far, in terms of my job or my career, I did consider where I could make the biggest difference. And I felt at Spotify I made a really big difference, along with an amazing team that was initially called the Artist Services team, and then essentially we called it Artist and Management Services, and it went through a couple of different sort of iterations. And with that team, we educated artists and managers around the world about streaming and about Spotify, and from the work of that team, a lot of great things came, including Spotify for Artists. And at some point, I felt like kind of the mission there was done, and I got a very, very, exciting phone call from, Frank Diekmann at Universal Music here in Germany, who's the President of Central Europe and CEO, and, we had a couple of intriguing conversations, and, I felt that I could really make a difference here, and that record companies at that point, 2018 and now 2020 are highly relevant, and we're a great partner to artists, and we're extremely important in the in the cycle of creation and sort of life cycle of product, and also the artist journey. And I felt I could bring something to the table from my perspective of my previous experiences.
Absolutely.
And so we went on that journey together, and I've been here 2.5 years now. Obviously, this year's been pretty hard.
Yeah.
In terms of the COVID and shutdown and everything, but I feel we're on track and we're making a difference, and I enjoy it a lot, and we're just getting started. So that's my vibe on it.
Absolutely. So you are in charge of the strategic development and marketing of Universal Music Group artists in Germany, as well as the international artists of Universal Music Germany in Germany, right? So it's both sides of the German medal, so to speak. And in concrete terms, it means you have high-ranking local and global managers of artists like Billie Eilish, Eminem, Felix Yen, Lady Gaga, Metallica, Rammstein, Taylor Swift, the Rolling Stones, give me more. So this gives you a lot of work, but also certainly of joy. But can you tell me a little bit more about your daily business, your job every day? What is the main part of this?
Well, the main part is really like, along with my fantastic teams, really making a difference in artists' careers, and it can be something as strategically basic as rolling out a strategy for a next release from one of the records we signed here locally, and kind of like exciting our partners around the world about that record, and then developing and implementing the strategy. It could be something like a Taylor Swift record, us finding out about it essentially 2 days before it drops, and then setting up a local marketing and release strategy, including D2C and everything for that record. But mostly I see myself as a facilitator to make sure my teams can do their job. And to me, there's a lot of strategy involved in that. There's a lot of tactics involved in that, and there's a lot of just clearing the lanes because as well as I do, the business has become so fast and so demanding that the one thing you need to do as a leader these days is to make sure your people can do their job undisturbed. So, that's a big thing that I do. And then obviously, along with the other people in the management team, we're collectively responsible for the strategy of Universal Music Germany as a whole. And, that's a big job because, we constantly adapt. This is a living, breathing enterprise. And, we constantly review and adapt and, sort of overthink and rethink and restructure. And it's not like, oh, you know what, we have a structure, it works, it can be there for 10 years. That's never the case. We actually challenge it every week.
I remember a couple of years ago, I was here at Most Wanted, and it was a lot about also do-it-yourself and etc. In a recent interview, you said that record companies are more relevant than ever to advise artists in a complex market, to become the best partner for artists, managers, and retailers. So, to what extent do you think, Ulf, that artists still depend or are still dependent on the help of a label? What do they need most? What is it? How do you position yourself there? Why do you really think more than ever? I was really struck by this expression.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't like the term dependency. I don't think anyone depends on anyone in this instance. I think it's a wanted and cherished alliance that, for certain people it makes sense, for certain people it doesn't. I think it's important to understand what you want, right? If as an artist, you really want to focus on your craft, you really want to focus on your art, and you want to leave the rest of it to people that really know what they're doing and that can help you with that and advise you and work with you as a partner, I think that's a great choice. I think it can be a modular thing as well, because don't forget, we have, a vast ranging number of deals and arrangements with people where we get, involved in certain elements or in all elements, and I think it's about that dialogue. It's about really, first of all, finding out what do you need as an artist, what kind of team do you have, what are your goals, what is your why, we do spend an exorbitant amount of time in figuring these things out, and then we basically build and custom tailor strategies around it that work for each artist, and they're never the same. And that's what's also awesome about this job, because you ask me on how my day goes, I don't know, because every day is different, and that makes it awesome. You know what I mean? Because to me, the repetitive boredom is for someone that's a curious and driven person, I think repetition and boredom is a killer.
It's not an option for you, absolutely. No, I understand. Well, anyway, I think you have enough there to do at Universal, and you have these marketing labs. Right, it's a shared marketing unit, it's a service provider, I guess, for Universal artists, for knowledge transfer, national and international. I guess all kind of KPIs are available. KPIs is key performance indicators, for those who do not know, like performance of tracks, albums, artists, categories, genre, profiles. I'm sure you have it all, and I'm sure you have it very granular, where exactly which songs were heard, where exactly. So this shows the power of data today, right? So, and I guess you also are a fan of you cannot manage what you cannot measure as an expression. Oh, I can't hear you anymore.
Right? I think.
Oh, here you go. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. I think to me, I think the most important thing is that we are data informed and not just data driven, because you need to understand to work with artists and to, accelerate and implement an artist's vision, you need to first of all understand this, what's special about that artist, what makes that artist tick, and what the artist wants. And it cannot all be based on data. I think that's very important to understand that. But we need to be data informed these days. I think the thing that we can bring to the table, more so than if you're sort of a lone ranger out there in the wild, is that we obviously have data from thousands of artists. And we can contextualize the data, and we can give you an idea what things mean. Because let's say you get a phone call and someone tells you, hey, you're doing 1 million streams a day in China. First instinct is to go, great. But then the next question should be, what does that mean? What does that mean for an artist of my genre? Is that even good? Is that amazing? Is that nothing special? So I think there's loads of things like that where we can help contextualize and sort of like interpret the data and make the data speak to you. Because data by itself is not smart. It needs smart people to interpret it. And once it's interpreted, it can be turned into something useful. And this whole thing of just gathering, that's not what it's about. It's about actionable things with the data.
Absolutely. You need to analyze all this, that's for sure. And do the managers and the artists receive all the data, even the granular data? Do they get everything they need? Or is it easier to get data when you work together with a label, when it's all about collecting this data? How does that work?
Well, I think obviously, we have a lot of tools that we've built that are proprietary for us that you wouldn't have access to if you wouldn't work with us. And a lot of it is also based on prediction and those kind of things. And, obviously we want to educate our managers and artists, and we want to make sure that we can have a dialogue that is a smart dialogue between parties that are equally well educated. So yes, we do share the data, and I do think that it's an absolute upside, for artists and managers to work with a company that is as data informed as we are. And also going back to labs really quick, I do not look at them as a service unit. I look at them as a partner that can help us, plan, execute, and implement, the marketing campaigns that we need these days with the amount of data information and strategy that we can get from the partners. So there it is. And also, don't forget, if you only look at like Spotify for artists, that's great. You have an amazing snapshot of Spotify. If you look at Apple Music for artists, great. You have an amazing snapshot of Apple. But who really tells you the real story? What caused what? What was the effect of what? What happened with radio? What happened in retail? What happened, on the socials, et cetera, et cetera? And for that, you need data storytelling. And that's something, believe me, that's not something that's easily achieved. And especially if you don't have context, you're going to have a very, very hard time making sense of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I see the necessity of the contextualization. And I think it's not only Spotify, even if Spotify is offering since May more ways for members of an artist team to access an artist analytics. You need all the channels and etc. So it seems like a little bit like everything is getting more and more transparent in terms of performance. You said the word before, prediction. In the film business, there are AI tools to check which scripts will be cinema and streaming hits. Do you use AI previews or to preview to check if an artist is going to take off?
Well, not until it's released. I think it's dangerous to have AI determine what's a hit before you have the public vote, so to speak. What we do is we look at patterns of releases and we see how they perform in the initial release period, and from that, and basically the interaction of the fans, we do predict where it could go. But obviously, I think another thing that's very important, again, we're data informed, which means that if we believe in a record, it could mean that we fight for it for 6 months until there's a result. And we're not in the business of throwing 40 things against the wall and seeing which one sticks, but we're in the business of, you know, driving everyone as far as we can because it's our duty to the artists.
No, I think that's great, because otherwise, I mean, we also have AI to compose pop hits and etc. I mean, and everything at the end looks and sounds the same. So this is not what we are working for, actually. But anyway, we have quite a few artists here in the audience who do not actually even dare to dream to go to Universal, or maybe they do not want to go to Universal, or maybe they dream to sign with Universal. But now let's talk a little bit more about smaller labels, maybe. Can they provide the same quality, if not the quantity, of the data, the same assets in terms of networking, or what is their USP? Why are smaller labels, do you think, just as relevant as a Universal?
I think, truthfully, as a music lover, anyone that dedicates their time to help artists is a winner in my book. So I have a huge love for small labels. I think they are relevant. I think they are important, and I think it's something that we have to cherish and continue to, you know, just nurture. I think at some point, if you want to scale an artist up beyond a certain level, you're going to need allies. You know, it's just what the business sort of dictates, because it's going to be very, very difficult. Of course, there's always the outlier exception that can prove my case wrong, but I think in the majority of times, it is absolutely proven that at some point, you're going to want to scale up your team, and you're going to want to add competent people to help you with certain things. Now, do I think that small labels are fantastic in ourselves and that can drive a vision and, you know, discover things where we might not see it yet? Without a doubt. But, you know, the thing is, we're open to all kinds of discussions, to all kinds of deal models. And to me, it's just about like, hey, let's just have a chat. If it's not a fit, that's cool too. But we want to talk to everyone.
And how do you, I mean, we are in this session for record labels today and tomorrow, so 2020 and beyond. How do you think, even with these alliances or being independent, how do you think that smaller labels can stay relevant in this evolution? What do you think is their biggest asset?
Always been. I think the same way they've always been. They've had their ear to the ground. You know, like a lot of it is DIY. I mean, I started my label back then because I had an artist that I loved and I wanted to get his music released. So a lot of times it comes from that sort of passion. It comes from that sort of drive. And I think it's going to continue to be that way. You know, and I think a lot of these independent labels now build around an artist, and then that artist becomes successful, and then they bring more into the fold. And you know, to me, that's a wonderful thing of doing it. You know, and again, you know, we have loads of deals that are only quote unquote, you know, distribution and certain amounts of consulting. If they want to have some of our services, you know, we can talk about that, and we have a sort of a toolbox way of adding that. You know, and to me, that's the future. The future is just, there are no rules. Let's talk, and let's ultimately not be about pondering and positioning, but let's be about artist success, because collectively, that's what we all want. That's why we all started being in this business.
Absolutely. Ulf, we have right now an acceleration of digitalization, altered figures of music streaming during the pandemics and etc. Like, you know, it's up and it's down again with the streaming. And how do you think the listening and the reception habits of users will develop shortly after the pandemics? And how do both music companies and creators have to adapt to the actual situation? For example, are you taking specific measures, considering delaying a release date, or artists are doing more music in their studios as far as they can during the lockdowns to avoid putting new music at certain periods and later? So how do you adapt? How are you dancing around this pandemic situation?
Well, I didn't hear the first part of your question because the audio went away, but I think I heard enough to answer it. I mean, to me, I think it's all about being flexible and agile. We ultimately work with the artists and their teams to develop the strategies that work for them. Obviously, if a record is coupled with a tour, and it's very important for that artist to have it out with a tour or with a pre-sale or something, then we adapt to that. But I can tell you, we've seen more music released this year than ever, and the release schedule we already have for 2021 is extremely full. So I'm not seeing any shortage of creativity, and I'm certainly not seeing a slowdown in releases. I think a lot of artists have more time to make records now because they're no longer trekking around the world to play to fans, which is a very regrettable thing and a horrible thing for the live industry and everybody that's associated with it, and my heart bleeds with them. But I think we're definitely seeing more and more releases because people are just at home and they're making music, you know?
Yeah, this is great because, I mean, this conference is called Most Wanted Music. This is a very nice answer to this one. But now let us have a look maybe in the future also. We see that the direct-to-fan marketing is becoming increasingly important. So how will look ideal releases and marketing strategies in the coming years? How do you see the evolution of putting this great music on the market? How do you see the development?
I mean, I think direct-to-fan is a bit of an overused term because, truthfully, we've always been marketing music direct-to-fan because otherwise who would have bought it, you know, or who would have listened to it or discovered it? I mean, to me, you know, obviously we're stepping up our D2C game, we're stepping up our game at retail. You know, there's a lot of, like, new releases can have up to, like, you know, 50 different bundles or whatever. So we're definitely catering to that bracket of fans, but I think direct-to-fan is also something that has happened a lot because of the DSPs being able to sort of steer the music towards the fan, right? So if you look at these algorithmic playlists and a lot of these recommendations, you'll get recommendations from artists that they know you like, which is great because you're not going to miss anything, you know, hardly. But to me, I don't really see a fundamental strategic shift in what we do. I think we're just going to refine it and go along with it and basically do what we've always done, is challenge ourselves and try to be the best at what we do while staying humble and, like, you know, just being a fantastic partner to our artists. And also, obviously, to all the partners out there, to media, to DSPs, to retail, you know, radio is a huge component for us, you know. So I think nothing's really going to fundamentally change. It's more going to be like subtle adjustments.
Yeah, I can say also as a marketing strategist, not as a moderator right now, that it is always going back to the basics, engage with the fan base and build your brand, right? So this is something which is probably going to stay. But I would like to have a further outlook into the future and in the next level phase of digital transformation, which is really coming up for Universal in that case, towards more streaming, the importance of voice, also for marketing tools, virtual concerts, VR, AR, mixed reality, immersive media, digital artists, spatial displays coming up for VR and MR with no glasses, blend of music, games, films. Like, what's the big picture for you in that term of this futuristic scenario? Where do you see you as a record label going?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're looking at all of that with great interest, and I think ultimately, you know, we're going to have to decide when there's a little bit more meat on the bone. I mean, currently we're like in the exploitative stages when it comes to all that. You know, we have teams, you know, looking into it and sort of starting to develop strategies, but a lot of this is still, you know, a bit like just far on the horizon. You know, to me, I think it's important that you're living in the moment. Obviously, you have an eye on the future and you want to make sure you don't miss anything. But we certainly are not in the business of just dreaming about the future and neglecting the moment, because, like I said, our responsibility to our artists is to give them the best possible service right now while looking into the future and make sure the avenues are there. So I think in terms of voice, we're already seeing strong impact on that. We actually have a team here in Germany that's dedicated to voice skills. So we're doing a lot of that, you know, and I think it's going to continue to be more important also in vehicles, et cetera, and you see the behavior with people using voice already, you know, especially the people that are not sort of super fans but casual listeners. So that's definitely a nut that we're determined to crack, and we already sort of bought the nutcracker for it, let's just put it that way. And I think in terms of, you know, all the VR, AR, all these sort of like spatial components and all that, you know, I think it's to be determined to see whether the fans are actually okay with having the experience of a live concert, quote unquote, replaced, or whether it's just going to be a bit of a holding pattern until they can actually go back to concerts. So we'll see about that,
Yeah, and we'll see about this a little bit later on also with Bessie Wolf and how she handles also music with technology. It's really interesting, so don't miss it. It's later on today. We will hear a little bit more about AI later on. So this is the perspective we saw together. So I heard the most important thing is obviously you are the ally next to the artists. Labels have this role to play to build their brand and connect to the bases. Alliances are very important from your point of view. Big record labels, smaller record labels. The future of them is also to stay in staying relevant by playing a role of also looking trends and discovering a new artist. You are here with a little bit more volume in terms of contextualization, data analysis, and etc. to scale, so there is room for everybody, and it suits very well the theme today here of Most Wanted Music, Togetherness. Ulf, thank you very much for this time we spent together, this 25 minutes. That's why I have to say goodbye for now. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon in real life.
Absolutely, thank you. I really enjoyed the discussion. I think we could have gone on for a lot longer. We could have talked about A&R and a lot of other things that obviously we didn't mention in this short session. But yeah, thank you for the time. Thanks for having me. Okay. And hopefully next time under slightly easier circumstances.
Here, next to me, the nice. Absolutely. Next year, hopefully. See you. Bye-bye.